What's up, guys? Welcome to Different Lens. Today, I have a really cool interview for you guys. I have a really awesome person. He is the voice of Connie from Attack on Titan, Langris from Black Clover, and of course, Katsuki Bakugo from My Hero Academia. Clifford Chapin, pleasure to have you here.
Hey, awesome to be here, man.
All right, so jumping in straight into the questions that I have for you. The first one is, what was the first project that you directed, and how was the transition from acting to directing?
The first project that I directed for anime, I was an assistant director to Colleen Klinkenbeard,
Mm-hmm.
who is the primary voice director for My Hero Academia. But that was the first show. It was actually two shows at the same time. It was a show called The Rolling Girls,
Mm-hmm.
which is an adorable and very fun little show about four girls going on an adventure and all the crazy things that they encounter along the way. And it's like a supernatural sort of series, not supernatural like ghosts and stuff like that, but like, some people have like superpowers and there's all these various abilities and things. And it's super fun, super cool, super cute show. And at the same time, we were also directing a show called Yona of the Dawn.
Mm.
Um, but kind of strangely, at the time, we hadn't dubbed the first 12 episodes. And so we jumped into dubbing on episode 13, because that was in our first like big season of simuldubs. And and so they decided the second half of Yona of the Dawn was what was current at the time. And so they decided to start dubbing halfway through the show. And then we went back and directed and dubbed over the first half
Mm-hmm.
later. Which actually the first half of Yona of the Dawn is the first show that I really ended up directing by myself. Which is kind of funny because it was like, I started with Yona of the Dawn part 2, and then later kind of directed Yona of the Dawn part 1 and tried to, make it consistent, and we had to tweak some things, as we went back and whatnot. But those were the first ones, and transitioning to directing was a really cool experience and very fun for me. It was stressful, especially at the time, because like I said, it was the first big wave of simuldubs. So there was a real sense of like everything was riding on everybody that was doing it at the time.
Right.
And if something was wrong and you figured out how to fix it or save it or make it work in the moment before the deadline, it truly felt like you were a hero. Like we were all part of this moment of like, we did it, we made another episode, get out on time. And so it was very exciting and very harrowing, but it was cool because I had studied directing since I was a kid. It was what I had kind of as a child wanted to be a film director, and as I got older, my goals shifted and changed, and I became far more enamored with voice acting. So when I got to start voice directing, it was kind of like, oh, this is like both of the things that I love coming together.
Right.
And so I got to use a lot of my experience and education from growing up, and it was awesome. It was crazy. It was cool. It was fun. It was exciting. It was very stressful.
Right.
But it was a very great experience, and I loved it, every moment of it.
Cool, awesome. So the second question that I have for you is, you're very known for your graspy voice and your characters that are very aggressive and kind of yell a lot. Not only
Yes.
Bakugo but also Langris. Uh,
Yes.
but do you have any vocal warm ups that you do for those characters, and what is the process of getting to those voices without damaging your own voice?
Um, it's gonna sound terrible, but not. I don't have too much. I'll do like I'll do some vocal warm ups of like scales and just sort of arpeggios and things like that, just to try and get my instrument kind of going.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not a whole heck of a lot that I feel like you can do to truly ever really prepare, especially for characters like Bakugo and Longris. Like they will scream the whole episode if they have the chance,
Mm-hmm.
and there's just not much you can do to prepare for that. What's almost more important in that is more worry about the aftermath of it. A lot of times I try and schedule sessions. Like if I know I'm gonna have to scream a lot, I try and schedule those to like the end of the week, like later into Friday, so that then I can have the weekend to rest and recover and go into vocal rest and just not speak so that I can heal from it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the best answer, and it's one of those ones that I'm kind of grateful that now we're into later seasons where Bakugo is more calm and he's not yelling all the time anymore, so it's good character growth. Because it also is giving me the chance to like not blow out my voice every week recording the character.
Right, of course. It's also really funny that, you know, those characters are very aggressive and very angry, and knowing you personally through conventions and just talking on the phone, you're a very chill and relaxed person. Is it difficult to get to those points naturally? And is it kind of cathartic for you to get to those points where you're like, I kind of like blew out all the stress that I have for the day?
Sometimes, it's funny because Colleen, she would tell you that I'm actually very similar to Bakugo,
Hmm.
but most people come up to me and they're like, man, I expected you to be more aggressive. I expected, and especially because like my voice naturally sounds like this instead of the Bakugo voice all the time. And so like it tends to actually catch a lot of people off guard, but I hope that the reason that I can convey those characters and I tend to get cast as those characters is actually because of the juxtaposition of my personality.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can get pretty intense about things. Like I understand the part of me that Colleen attributes to being like Bakugo. But in that it's like I'm very driven, I'm very focused, and I cannot stand when there's sort of like an injustice or if things are wrong or somebody's not doing what they're supposed to be doing. It really frustrates me. um because I believe in people doing what they're supposed to and doing what's right.
Right.
And so I know that that's the part of me that Colleen is like, that's where Cliff is with Bakugo. um but I hope that what I connect with, or the reason that I connect with it and am able to portray the characters so well, is because it's actually not who I am. I feel like a lot of times I meet the people who play the villains in shows and things like that, and they're like the nicest,
Right.
kindest people, and then you're like, but you played such a wonderful and just vile villain. And I'm always like, it's got to be because they are so not that person in real life that they're somehow able to be like, well, then this is just me not being myself. So I hope that that's what it is that I have that ability going in, is that it's like, oh, this is more of that thing that I'm not really.
And
At
it's so
least I
funny.
hope.
It's so funny you say that because not only a lot of people that play the villains are actually super nice, kind, and great people, but there's also that other side of the coin where it's like the gallant, the heartthrob, the guy that is supposed to be the nicest. Like you can literally later find out who they are, and he's like, oh my god, really? Like this is like the good guy of the show. Wow.
Well, and there are so many times where you meet like an actor and they'll be super super talented, but like they're so many of us are very reserved and quiet people, and we just like to live our little lives and stuff like that. And there's so many, like kind of you said, they're like, these are the heartthrobs, and then you meet them and it's like, oh, I haven't dated all that much, like they haven't had that many relationships and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's always kind of funny the way that is. I don't know what it is that makes that happen, but it's a thing.
It,
I
it
don't know.
is. It truly is. So we have a dynamic on our show that it's we have a set of 20 questions, but I'm gonna ask you only for three. So if you could give me three numbers from 1 to 20.
1 to 20. Let's do 4,
Mm-hmm.
13, and 19.
Wow, you almost picked the exact same questions that Rico did.
Ah,
Yeah,
so close. What did he pick?
he picked 4, 20, and 13.
Ah, so
So
close.
close. So number four, it's kind of a difficult question to ask.
Okay.
What character do you think you could have done a better job at?
Ooh, what character do I think I could have done a better job at? my my first gut instinct is to kind of say that uh I want to lead off by saying I can't think of an instance in which I went in and did a performance and I didn't give it my all, you know? Um that at least for whenever I did the performance or whenever I was there, I gave it everything that I had. I gave it the extent of my talent at the time. And of course, we are always growing and developing and furthering into our careers. That said, uh, I'd probably want to, if I had the chance, I would love to go back and maybe do some of the earlier things from my career again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the first show I ever worked on was a series called Good Luck Girl Bimbo Gamiga. I played Keita Suibuki, and it was literally the first audition I ever had. I went in, I thought I bombed it, and Joel McDonald was the voice director at the time, and he cast me on it. And and so it was one of those things where it's like I was learning a lot about the experience and the practice of what we were doing at the time in that moment, even with all my years of study and everything before it. Like, you can study all you want until you're doing it in the actual moment. You don't really know how it works completely.
Right.
um so there's some stuff that every now and again, like a clip of that'll pop up on like Twitter or something like that, and I'll see it and I'm like, oh, it's pretty good. It was definitely the best I had at the moment, but like now, 9 years later, I'm like, oh, I probably could do those things funnier now or whatnot. So if I had the chance, some of the stuff probably from my first year, especially the first year, would be things I'd like to go back to do just to see if I could bring them up more to present day quality and what I'm capable of. So probably that.
Cool, cool, cool. Um, Number 13 is, what character would you like to portray?
Ooh, um, that's an interesting one because a lot of the times, like when it comes to anime and
Mm-hmm.
such, I am so not in the know. like, like a lot of the current manga and things like that, like I don't know what's popular until it's like just about to come out kind of thing. And then I start to hear the buzz about it. I'm like, oh, that seems cool. Um, so a lot of my answers for questions like this are probably not very
Current?
much there. It's not even that they're current, it's more that like I don't think they're what people are going to expect, especially because I'm so well known for doing anime
Mm-hmm.
um roles. I would like, but I am a big comic book fan.
Mm.
So like I would love to one day be one of the many actors who have gotten to portray Spider-Man.
Oh, wow.
He's like one of my favorite comic book characters and stuff like that. And I mean, he's had as many voice actors as number of years I've been alive. So I'm like,
Wow.
well, I could be one day, right? So like I'd love to voice Spider-Man one day, if I were given the chance and were able to book the audition. Um, I'd love to be a Transformer. I've been a big Transformers fan ever since I was very, very little. Um, so like one of my dream projects is there was a Transformer show from when I was a kid called Beast Wars,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and there were two Japanese exclusive Beast Wars anime series produced,
Mm.
called Beast Wars Second and Beast Wars Neo. My dream projects are, I would love to work on the adaptations of those shows, like direct them, write them, voice acting them. Like those are what I want to work in. Like I want to work on those so bad. Um, like, and there are characters in that I would love to voice if I had the chance, but I have no idea if that project will ever even happen at this point. Like, I mean, it's been 25 years since those anime were made.
Right.
I don't even think that they're trying to license those anywhere.
They will just give
So,
them to
but
you for free.
God, I wish. Oh, I would take them. Please, please send them to me. I will do it. I will get them done.
Well, you hear it first. You heard it first. If you know anybody in Japan that has a connection with that, send it to Clifford Chapin.
Anybody, Hasbro, get in touch with me. I will. Hit me up on Twitter. I will do it. Please.
It's really funny because now that you mentioned that, like to me, that series has been always kind of like a guilty pleasure one, because
Mm-hmm.
yes, the animation is really rough around the edges, but some of the stories
Mm-hmm.
are so cool, and
Oh my gosh,
I
so
love
good.
that
So
over
good.
the regular Transformers, because I was like, I
Yeah.
want to be a gorilla, you know, I want to be a
Yeah, yeah.
scorpion, that would be so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, that was like the second that was the second fully produced, I think the second fully produced CGI animated show of all time, like ever made.
Mm.
So I mean, when the if you've never seen it before and you're looking at it, you're like, man, the animation's really rough. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was the dawn of time for that. You know, like it's never been done.
Right.
So so
They,
anyway.
it should get the Demon Slayer treatment of like the 2D and 3D nowadays. They should redo
Oh
it,
yeah.
and oh, that would be
Oh yeah.
amazing.
I
So
see people say that all the time. They're like, just reanimate it. Just use the audio from the old show and just
and just
reanimate it.
reanimate it, yeah, for sure. I bet somebody is gonna do that at some point because it has a huge following.
Yeah.
So going on to number 19, what has been the best experience in a convention that you've ever had, aside from meeting the Spanish voice cast of My Hero Academia?
Oh my God, that was totally gonna be my answer though. Like, I, I genuinely, truly, 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 I am so fortunate. I'm so honored and so blessed to have many, many, many wonderful, wonderful experiences. And while you've taken the wind out of the sails, I mean, like one of my favorite experiences was actually meeting you and Roms and just everybody. Everybody was so wonderful. All you guys in the Spanish cast, like that is one of the biggest highlights of my career thus far. I say it all the time, and I know I said it with you guys when I met you guys at that convention, but like the My Hero voiceover community between us and the Spanish cast and like the German cast and everything, like anytime I connect with anybody who is a voice actor from My Hero Academia, no matter where they are in the world, every single one of them is like, oh my God, I love this series. It's so cool to get to talk to you and like, and whatever. And and it's just we really feel like a very extended family.
Mm-hmm.
And like we are all having very similar experiences and connect. It's so cool to see us all kind of like connect with the medium on
Right.
that series together. So truly one of my favorite experiences was getting to meet you guys. But if I have to pick ones that aren't that, um, I'm so, it's like I said, I'm so lucky. There was this one convention several years ago. It was actually when we premiered the English dub for season 3. We premiered it at a convention before it had aired, even in Japanese. We had the permission to premiere these episodes,
Okay.
like the first 2 episodes in English or something like that at this convention. It was insane. And it was a very cool experience. And Justin Briner, who voices Deku, is a good friend of mine, which always surprises everybody. Everybody always asks us if we really hate each other, and we do not. At least as far as I know, we do not.
Have you ever slapped him around a little bit, like, "Hey, come
No, no,
here"?
no, 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 no. There, there is a special feature from the end of season 2.
Mm-hmm.
We did a special feature where we had to do this interview thing, and it was the both of us, and it's the episode where Bakugo and Deku have to fight against All Might.
Mm-hmm.
and and poor Justin, we were doing this thing, and we did the intro where he's like, "Hi, I'm Justin Briner, and I'm doing this thing and whatever." And I come in, I'm like, "Excuse me, this episode's all about me," and I like shove him out of the frame. We had done it once, but the lighting wasn't set up properly,
Mm-hmm.
and so they made us shoot it again. And the second time we shot it, Justin tripped on the fake push, and there were these panels on the wall that I actually have one right here. I can show you. Hold on one second.
Yeah,
I'll
for
put it
sure.
on my camera. Sorry.
Yeah.
There are these panels on the wall that they have these very sharp spikes.
No.
And what these are for is they hold soundproof panels on the wall.
Right.
And this one soundproof panel was bleeding into the shot, and so they took it off the wall.
Oh
and
my God.
Justin tripped, and he connected with his forearm against one of these spikes and had to get stitches at the end of the thing. And I felt terrible.
Right.
I felt so bad. And so we had to do the rest of this interview thing. Justin's arm is bandaged and like whatever. That's the closest I've ever gotten to actually roughing up Justin was in that case. but God, I felt so bad, and it was so frustrating because we had shot it once and it went fine. He didn't get hurt, and then we had to redo it because of the lighting, and then he of course got hurt. I felt so bad, but that wasn't the story I was gonna say.
Right.
What I was gonna say is that when we were at this convention to premiere the English dub of season 3, Justin and I went and got dinner one night. And we're in this restaurant and we were talking about Dragon Ball Fighters, because Justin is a fantastic fighting game player. He is so good. He's so good. And so we were talking about stuff, and like, what do you think of this character? How do you play this? Blah 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 blah. And this guy came up, and he actually bought us each a shot, which I had to respectfully decline because I don't drink. I was like, thank you so much. I'm so sorry. I can't drink that, but I appreciate it. But he came up and he told us this story that he would run in marathons for charities, especially for like children's charities,
Mhm.
and he would run in cosplay. And so he would dress up as like Spider-Man or Superman, and whatnot. And he told us that that's because he has this belief that children should see their heroes working to help them and save them.
Mm.
And so he would run in these charity marathons dressed as the various characters. And he told us that running one of the marathons, he got injured. He tore a ligament in his leg.
Mm.
He got injured. He was feeling down on himself, and he was putting off getting like the surgery to have it properly fixed. He kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And then he discovered My Hero Academia, watched through the first 2 seasons at the time,
Mhm.
fell in love with it. It motivated him to get the surgery to correct the issue. And he went through physical therapy and everything in rehab, and that his next marathon was coming up very soon at the time, and he was running in it dressed as All Might.
Oh wow.
And it was like, I was like, oh my God,
Oh.
like practically moved me to tears in the moment.
Right.
But it was just such a wonderful and sweet story, and just to know, like, the medium had touched him, and he had responded to it and such, was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I have, like I said, I'm so fortunate. I have so many great experiences of people coming up and talking to me about how the series that series and so many others have connected with them and what they mean to them. And I'm just very fortunate. But those are the ones that always come to my mind now, is like meeting you guys, and this guy doing the marathons. Those are the two that, like, they're immediately at the top of my head when I get asked about, like, what's the best,
Yeah,
your favorite moment.
it's really funny because like I said it as a joke, but now like I kind of feel like an ass just for saying like that. And to hear the story, and now just like, oh, and meeting you is like the story is way up here, and meeting us is like just barely scraping by, like.
No, 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 no.
uh,
Not to me, it's not. Not to me, it's not.
oh my god, but
So,
that is a beautiful story, man. That is a beautiful,
yeah.
beautiful story. I want to go back in time a little bit,
Hmm.
because we never get to where we are by ourselves.
Hmm.
We always have people that push us and support us and want us to get to a different level. So, um, I have a few questions that I want to ask you for that. And the first is, who is the person that you have to thank for getting you into the industry?
Oh man. Well, there's a lot of moving bits and pieces to that for me. Um, I grew up in the Northeast, where if you weren't in New York City and you weren't on Broadway, you weren't going to be able to get into like the New York voiceover market when I was growing up.
Right.
Maybe now today it's different,
Hmm.
but at the time there was nothing. And so I kind of analyzed the market back then, and I was like, well, it's California or it's Texas, for me. And California was really, really expensive, and I was like fresh out of college. I had no flipping money, you know, couldn't afford anything. And but I had family in Dallas, and so I reached out to my cousin, and I was like, hey, I want to chase this dream. Could I come and stay with you, and like, I'll get a job, and I'll pay some rent, you know, and help and whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
just to get my feet on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And he was super cool about it. He's like, yeah, absolutely, come on, like, come and get it, you know. And so, like, packed up my car and drove across the country. So, like, my cousin was a very, very important part of my story, you know, because he helped me have a roof over my head, and you know, and he was always really focused on the, like, so what's the plan, what's your goal, how are you doing this, and whatnot, and which was very, very important, because I mean, I was all of 24 years old when I made that move, and you know, so that, you know, I was an adult, but like, I always think of it like there's a very distinct phase of being a kid and being an adult, and like that was my transition of kid to adult, was like, this is where I'm stepping into the real world now. And so my cousin was a very, very, very important part to that. There's so many little funny pieces to my story, because while I was living here with my cousin and I was working, um uh Adventures in Voice Acting, which is a voiceover class workshop that's run by Bang Zoom
Mm-hmm.
out in LA. They at least used to, I don't think they're doing it so much right now, but they used to have like a traveling workshop, you know. And so Tony Oliver, who's, you know, worked in the industry forever,
Right.
he was leading one of these workshops locally, and so I did the workshop, and he was like, you're really good. Felicia Angel, who voices Hagakure,
Mm-hmm.
she also was in that workshop. It was just like her and I and one other person, and there were just the three of us in it, and he was like, you guys are excellent, you guys need to be doing this. And so he was very encouraging, and you know, kind of set me on the path of like, okay, maybe I can actually do this, you know, and kind of inspired me to get a professionally made demo and whatnot. So then I had that to shop around, which then leads to the next really big part of this was, I had an open audition at Funimation for Colleen. Colleen was my director on this open audition.
Mm.
And I had, you know, some low budget voice acting experience at the time. And I had this thing, and she was like, hey, you're really good. I was like, thanks, you know, and I was like, I've done a little bit and whatever. And she's like, oh, so you've been a working professional. I was like, yeah, I mean, you know, I've done a little bit of stuff, you know, and not too crazy much, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, you're really, really good. Never called me in for anything.
Mm.
Nothing. Like, I mean, like, it was such a dead end moment of like, okay, I guess I didn't do well, even though she told me that I was good.
Yeah.
And so I got kind of impatient at one point, and I went, I looked up the address to Okratron, which is the studio that's owned by Chris Sabat. And I drove over and I knocked on the door to Okratron. And I got somebody's contact info, which included Chris Sabat's email,
Mm-hmm.
which you can't even do this now. They've moved to a different building, so you can't just walk up and knock on the door anymore.
Right.
And I got his email and like submitted my demo, and I was like, okay, well, maybe if I'm lucky, I'll hear something in like a week. I managed to make some sort of an impression that they like, I was like, maybe I'll be lucky and I'll hear something back in a week. I had an email back from Chris Sabat in like 3 hours.
Oh wow.
And which I'm sure I made an impression of like, who is this idiot coming and knocking on our door? Like, whatever. But they listened to the demo that I had made after I was inspired, like encouraged by Tony Oliver, that he then listened to it and he was like, hey, your demo's really good. We like your sound. We're going to call you in for something. And then a week later, he called me in for an audition. It was a really strange kind of audition, because it was like a paying audition, which I had never heard of before.
Okay.
Where it was like every person who came in, it was for a video game called Loco Cycle, I think. It was an Xbox 360 like online, like marketplace exclusive game.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really interesting. Everybody who came in recorded the whole character, and so everybody got paid like a flat rate for this thing. But if your files were selected to be used in the game, they paid you like a little bit more, which
Okay.
was weird. I've never heard of that before, and I've never seen it again. But I guess my voice was one of the ones that got chosen because I got paid the higher rate of it, which was cool. and Sabat, he seemed to like me, and so then he called Joel McDonald, who I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned before,
Mm-hmm.
and was like, "Hey, this guy came through. He seems pretty good. You should give him a shot." And then Joel called me in for the auditions for Good Luck Girl, Bimbo Gamiga, which I thought I bombed, and I apparently didn't. So those are kind of like it's a ramble of an explanation, but those are the parts of it, is like my cousin and Tony Oliver and Chris
And Chris
Sabat and Joel
Sabat.
McDonald. Like those were like the big tent poles to the first moment of me like actually having like a breakthrough.
For
So
sure,
yeah.
for sure, yeah. So the second one is, who has been the person that has supported you the most?
Oh my God. The
Again,
person
Tony
who's
Oliver and
yes, all these people. Man, I don't know. Like it's hard. First of all, it's hard not to say my wife. My wife is Krista McGuire, who's a voice actress, and she's been in a whole bunch of things.
Mhm.
And she and I are constantly in support of each other and encouraging each other to like take a step and take a chance and do this thing. Well, I want to do this thing. Okay, well, let's do this. How do we go about doing this thing? Um, she's got to be probably like the most present in it. Especially by today's standards. In the beginning, a friend of mine who is now a voice actor, but he was only in college at the time, Matt Shipman,
Mhm.
he's a voice actor. He and I used to talk about stuff all the time where I'd be like, well, this is what I'm dealing with, and like blah 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 blah, and so he was always like my, like, for lack of a better term, he was kind of like my cheerleader
Right.
in those days of like, go for it, man, you got, go for it,
Yeah.
and like whenever like a thing would come around, he's like, you could do this, like he was a big champion of me at the time, like,
Mhm.
go for it. And so at least within the industry, those were the people who most encouraged and supported me at the time of, like, or in various stages, like Matt especially back then, and we still cheer each other on and everything now.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then Kristen now, for sure, like we're always, it's actually one of the things that I really like about our industry is that very seldom have I ever come across somebody who is out to discourage you.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Most of the time we're all here for each other. It's like we want to help each other succeed, and we are a community that, like, as long as you're not like kind of being a tool or stirring up trouble, we are going to all support and encourage one another. And it's a truly wonderful thing about our little community.
So the third question about this is, what song reminds you of your youth?
Oh my God, song that reminds me of my youth. My favorite song of all time is Some Nights by the band Fun. Which I don't know that it necessarily reminds me of my youth, but it tends to make me remember the early days of chasing this career.
Mm.
There's a lot of that sort of feeling is in it, where it's like, I've been doing this for a long time, and am I doing the right thing, especially in the beginning, where, like, especially when it's like a struggle,
Right.
and you're like, I don't know, I'm not really established, and like, do I stand a chance at this, and like whatever. um those, especially in those days, um that song resonates with that period of my life a lot. And it was new, the song was new at that time, so
Mhm.
like I would hear it and it'd be like, God, this feels like what I'm going through. Which I tend to be of the opinion that music is a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful expression of the soul. uh, but I feel that way typically for the artist. For the audience, I feel like music is a lot like a fortune cookie, where like you can make a fortune cookie fortune, or like a horoscope or a whatever, fit your life, because they're meant to be ambiguous in a way that you hear it and you're like, oh my God, this makes me think of
Yeah.
this thing that's going on in my life. You know what I mean? And so, not to discredit or anything like that, but I tend to think of as the recipient of music, that we can attribute anything to music that we hear if we want to attribute it to it.
Mhm.
And so, but that song, Some Nights by Fun, was the first song that I really felt like I was like, this does feel like me. And especially kind of knowing like what the inspiration of that song is, and it does have to do with like artistry and like the existential crisis of like, am I doing the right thing? Like I left my family to do this,
Right.
like that's present in the song. So it's kind of one of those, it's one of those ones where I was like, not only does it feel like it resonates with me because of this thing, but it actually is kind of about those things anyway, even though it's
Right.
more for them, it's about music. For me, it was about acting. So
Right.
that's the song that like really cements a moment in my life. And kind of like I said, it was the moment where I felt like I was transitioning from childhood to adulthood. So,
So it
so
does
kind
play
of,
a part in the
kind of
in that
works.
sense of childhood. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So the fourth and the last question that I have for you is, if you could talk to your younger self, what could you tell him?
I always think about that little little 8-year-old Clifford Chapin was real big into Dragon Ball Z, because it was 1996. That's when the original Rock the Dragon dub came out with the Canadian cast, and I always think about, if I could meet little 8-year-old Clifford Chapin, I could be like, when you grow up, you get to play a Super Saiyan in the sequel to Dragon Ball Z. And then I would watch his head explode, and then I would fade out of existence because I've created a time paradox where like I don't exist past the age of 8 anymore. And like, all these sorts of things. But that's the thing that I always want to be like, if I could tell myself this, I would love to see what I would say as an 8-year-old child. But
Just hey kid, do you want me to blow your mind? Bam,
kid,
you
you
know.
want boo, like gone. Um which maybe that's a lame answer. It's because I feel like normally people would be like, well, I would tell myself to, stick with it, chin
No,
up, kid. But like,
but you know what? I think that is a really cool answer, because I think I would kind of say something like that, where I wouldn't just say like, oh, stick it, whatever. I would just be like, hey, you know what? Just there's gonna be a point in your life where it's gonna feel like, hey, everything is worth it. So just keep being weird, whatever.
exactly.
So Clifford, thank you so much for your time, for your humor, for all the stories that you have. It's truly been an honor for me to get to do this interview with you. You're one of the kindest, most amazing people that I've ever gotten to meet, and especially with the level of the career that you've had. So thank you so much again. Thank you guys for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it, and always remember to look at life through a different lens.